And welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So, in this episode, I'll be discussing the 2014 horror romance, and I would probably use the word loosely, comedy, Life After Beth, as directed by Jeff Biena? Anyway, in the movie, we are introduced to Zach Orfman, as played by Dane DeHaan, who is mourning the loss of his girlfriend, Beth Slocum, as played by Aubrey Plaza, after she died following being bitten by a snake on a hike. Disconnected from his own family, he seeks refuge with Beth's parents, Maury and Jeannie Slocum, as played by John C. Reilly and Molly Shannon, respectively. However, after forming a friendship with them, the following day, they basically ghost him completely. Turns out they're hiding an unimaginable secret, to be quite fair. Beth has arisen from the grave in what her parents believe to be a resurrection. A reluctant Zach, he starts his relationship back up with Beth, which, at the start, to be quite fair, apart from being somewhat unnerving, basically dating a previously deceased person, seems somewhat normal. Beth is perhaps a little forgetful and ditzy at first, but soon she starts to have violent mood swings and uncontrollable outbursts of rage. Understandably shaken, Zach tries to call the whole thing off, but this just enrages Beth even more. Apparently, only the non-offensive tones of smooth jazz seem to calm her down. It then becomes apparent that Beth isn't the only resurrected, or resurrection in town, shall we say, as other members of the deceased community start to make an appearance. As the undead turn ever more agitated and violent, will Zach and Beth, will their love stand against the foul smell of decaying flesh? So, with all the promise of what this film could have been like, I was severely let down. And if you know me by now, you've watched quite a few of my reviews, that's quite a rare thing for me to actually say. Usually I like something, I love a movie, it don't matter, but I usually like something about movies. Now, perhaps my expectations were set too high, No, I don't think so, okay, I wasn't expecting Shaun of the Dead, not that quality. I knew the film wasn't going to be the next Zombieland, but I was expecting to be entertained. And quite simply, I wasn't at all. It wasn't a bad movie, all told. It just never really did anything. And it really struggled to hold my attention, especially for pretty much the first half, if I'm honest. The movie lingers, it even sulks, if you like, far too much at the start. I mean, it's a zombie film, There's no shock here. It's got zombies in it. But the film tries to slowly build up this fact, which just kind of leaves you with a real unsatisfied feeling. Whilst it tries to be different from other zombie films by not actually focusing on the zombies, it's just not funny enough or enthralling enough to hold your attention at the start. Even kind of coming across as a bit pretentious, perhaps, and even very melodramatic for a zombie film, really. It tries to be clever by holding back any information as to why things are actually happening. It just doesn't explore this at all. Sometimes that actually works in movies, I must admit, to build suspense. Agreed, there's no disagreement from me there. In this case, however, it's just simply irritating, as there isn't enough of anything else actually going on to really justify how they've actually padded this out. And they really have stretched what they had. It's not horrifying. It's not gory. I wouldn't even say it's romantic. Not really. It does actually struggle in each of these respects. I'm not I'm not even quite sure if this even qualifies as a love story. It's more of a sappy, less punchy, and to be fair, even less romantic version of 1993's Return of the Living Dead. It's much more tame. Well, extremely tame by comparison. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. At all. This movie could certainly appeal to those that aren't into the gore and the extreme nature of those films in that franchise, you know? But there's just no substance here to really get your teeth into, regardless of what you want from your rom-com, you know? I'm sorry to say that there are much better, more romantic zombie films out there, you know? Indeed, including Return of the Living Dead 3, but also 2013's Warm Bodies, which did actually precede this movie, which is a much better attempt at the genre, and with a couple of decent twists too, really, and a fresh and kind of fun style that this film just didn't have. The dialogue and the acting, it is very awkward. It's not natural at all, and often very over the top. And often over the top of each of the actors too. Some films are, they are designed to be like this, I know. A bit more tongue-in-cheek, perhaps. But this took itself far too seriously to kind of fall into that category. And so it ended up kind of feeling skittish and really cringy at times, rather than funky, fresh and entertaining like it should have done. I mean, there are some fairly decent names attached to this, all told, as well as those that I've already mentioned. You've got the likes of Cheryl Hines, Paul Reiser, and, Gary Goobler, and even Anna Kendricks, to name but a few. But they all struggle for some reason in this movie, and it certainly shows on screen. I think they could have made more of the fact that Beth was actually one of the undead. I think that would have been a bit funnier. However, they tried to be more deep and meaningful with what they were presenting to us, which ultimately failed. Instead, as a zombie, for the most part, she just got mad a bit, torched a lifeguard station and broke a few windows. Oh, she ended up with sunburn. But that is about as riveting as the film actually got. All right. I'm maybe being a little bit mean there, perhaps. It does get a little bit more intriguing as kind of things start to happen and more of the undead start to rise. In fact, one of the best parts are when the rest of the dead actually rise and some of the older corpses, shall we say, start arguing with each other, when they're at least somewhat compass mentors. But just when you think it's about to take off with some real fun elements like this, it falls flat and never really does anything else. And so it just kind of leaves you with a real right deflated feeling, if you know what I mean. And then to kind of top it all off, towards the end, it just got silly. In a last-ditch attempt, I think, to be quirky and funny, it fails. And it just felt sad, really, watching it struggle to try and be something that it wasn't. So, overall, let's face it, this movie is not going to do for zombies what the Twilight Saga did for vampires and werewolves, Perhaps that's a good thing. I suppose that really does depend on your take on that particular franchise. But at the very least, the movie does nothing to kind of romanticize these creatures. It's a hard feat. But, going off on a bit of a tangent, the Wrigley's extra come Orbit chewing gum advert features a zombie high school love. That does a lot better job of this than this film actually does. And that advert is only a few seconds long. Apologies if you haven't seen that advert, or if you don't have that in your country. So in this case, I am just kind of whittering on a little bit, but for reference, if I can find it on YouTube, I will post a link in the video description section down below, so you can kind of see what I mean for reference. Really, it just feels like this could have been so much more. And in an attempt to be different, they lost sight of their overall direction. And there's just not enough in this movie to be overly entertaining. I just found it a bit droll and pretentious for the most part. I'd like to think that love conquers all, you know, but there's nothing here that makes me think that, you know. Well, not for zombies, as far as zombies are concerned in any event. It's hard, but I just really couldn't get into this one at all. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, and other movie-related content. Absolutely loved having you here at SciFirst MovieTalk. We'd definitely love to have you back. But yes, most of all, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.